Hey there, grumpy old fart here. Something to drink right quick, wet my whistle. I'm doing an Outlaw Trails, the role-playing game story titled Sometimes the Law Works. My friend Kevin and I were playing in my friend Earl's Outlaw Trails game. Earl was an excellent game master, and he was always able to capture the flavor and the feel of the Old West. Kevin and I were playing a couple of drifters. We were down on our luck and needed work. We didn't want to become outlaws or lawmen, which left regular jobs. The bartender in a little town introduced us to a ranch owner. Most of his hands had gone to go try their luck on a silver rush. Somebody had struck silver and they were going to go try to mine silver. They were heading someplace up north. We hired on and found that the three hands that he had left were either old, young, or just plain lazy. Jimmy was an old man who was perpetually riding fences. Lane was a young man and eager to work, but knew nothing of cattle, and so he was almost useless. He was willing to work, but he didn't know what he was doing. The last guy, Vern, was as lazy gets. We caught him more than once napping or goofing off. This guy, you couldn't get a day's work out of him. It was ridiculous. Before I get too deep into this story, if you enjoy my content, it would really help me out if you could hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, share my content on social media, and post a comment or two. Remember, I welcome your comments, even if you disagree with me. If you enjoy a good book, check out my author page on Amazon. My pen name is H.L. Anderson. You can find all 7 of my books there. I like to think I write good stories that make you think. Now, on with Sometimes the Law Works. Mr. Sorensen, the ranch owner, had just completed a drive. So he had just over 200 head of cattle remaining, and nobody was tending them. Most of his hands had left, as I said, to go up north for a silver strike. Kevin and I took Lane and Vern, and we headed out to find and check on the cattle. They were grazing in an area near a pond designated the North Pasture, and all was well, so everything was cool. Kevin took Lane and started teaching him all about cattle. I took Vern and started scouting out the nearby areas for grass and water. Because for those of you who don't know, cattle who stay in one area, they eat the grass, and then when there's nothing, they just meander different directions. As if they stay in a herd, you'll be lucky. You want to move that herd to a new area before the cattle gets completely eaten down. That way the grass grows back faster. Vern and I ran into a group of 5 men camping on ranch property. They were near some trees, and we confronted them and asked them to leave. They didn't seem belligerent or dangerous, and they agreed to leave. They began striking their camp, so we drove off. Or we rode off, rather. Drove off, yeah. Wrong game. We rode off. We found a nice lake fed by a mountain stream with excellent grass around. We decided that this should be the next place we move the herd. No problem. On the return trip, we noted that the men had gone, but their tracks indicated that they were heading for the herd. Fearing Kevin and Lane might be in trouble, we raced back. Sure enough, when we got back, the men were shooting at Kevin and Lane, who were holed up in some rocks near a pond. I took Vern, and we circled around to flank them. As I started to take a bead with my rifle to shoot at them, Vern put his pistol to my head and shot me dead. Vern was with the rustlers and had been feeding them information and covering for them for months. The rancher had been losing cattle and didn't even know it. Kevin and Lane were pinned down by Vern and one other of the rustlers, while the rest took the entire herd. I made up a new character, and Earl worked me into the game. I met them as they tracked the herd. We followed them for over 8 miles until they crossed a stream onto another ranch. Lane raced to get the sheriff while Kevin and I followed the trail. The herd was brought in and mixed with that ranch's herd. They were all branded, so we knew which ones belonged to Sorensen. We overheard them talking with the ramrod. The rustlers worked with the other rancher to secure beef and, beef cattle. They butchered the excess to fulfill their beef contracts, but drove their cattle to market. It was all about the extra profit. So they had contracts to produce beef for some of the locals, but they also wanted to drive cattle to market. So they were stealing other people's cattle, butchering them for the beef contracts, and then driving their cattle to market, and they were double dipping essentially. Kevin and I camped out on a wooded hill overlooking the herd. We watched them to make sure that they never moved. This guy had a lot of gun hands, cattlemen and gun hands. There was only two of us. We weren't going to attack him. When Lane returned, he had the sheriff and deputy with him. The five of us confronted the other rancher who claimed ignorance. He, of course, returned the cattle, and the rustlers were arrested along with Vern and the ramrod. The ramrod of the other ranch, we had heard him talking, so we knew he was in on it too. We got Vern and the ramrod to talk. They implicated the ranch owner and the local slaughterhouse owner. That owner, you're gonna love this, had a contract signed by the other ranch owner who had stipulated that not all of the cattle he brought in would have his brand. That was enough for the sheriff, who arrested the other rancher. He was convicted and sentenced to the territorial prison. Sorensen was able to purchase the other ranch at auction, and he gave us all raises. We worked for him for quite a while before Earl had to stop the game for work. Yeah, that happens sometimes in games. But it just goes to show you that sometimes when you play by the rules legal-wise, sometimes the law actually works out in the game in your favor. It's amazing. I had to lose a character in that game, but, that's the beauty of role-playing games. You just make up another one. I hope this finds everybody well. You folks have a good one. God bless one and all. We elect cookie-cutter politicians every single election cycle. Yes men who maintain the status quo and do just enough to make us believe the system still works. Imagine, if you will, a president who actually tries to fix things. If you like action, political intrigue, and a righteous crusade, check out my political thriller, The Righteous President.